Hey everyone. April is National Poetry Month, and so as part of what we are going to be um, doing as part of our learning at home is we're going to read a book that I always love to read to my students every year. It's called Love That Dog by Sharon Creech, and there's also a sequel called Hate That Cat, which we will get to read together as well. So what I thought I would do is I'll record myself reading different sections just like we would normally do during our picnic snack. We can talk about it, and then you guys are also going to have some follow-up activities that you'll need to do because this is a really great example of writing with poetry and the different poetic techniques that authors use, not only when they're writing poems, but also we'll see them a lot of times in literature as well. So something that you need to know about this book is that it's actually written from the point of view of a student named Jack who is in Miss Stretchberry's class. And Miss Stretchberry and Jack have a type of journal that they write back and forth to one another. So Jack will write an entry in the journal, which is in poem form, and then Miss Stretchberry will respond to him, and then Jack will write another response in poem form, and so on. The thing is, we only get to read the responses that are from Jack's point of view. So we have to infer and use the clues in what Jack is saying to figure out what Miss Stretchberry has probably responded to him in her journal responses. So along the way, we will probably take some time once in a while to actually write some of Miss Stretchberry's responses to Jack, what we think she would have said. And so what I'll probably do is in our Google Classroom somehow put our pictures of these poems and pages of the book so that you can look back and then pick a couple that you might want to respond from Miss Stretchberry's point of view. Something else I'll have you do is I will probably ask you to write some poems or at least some lines using some of the techniques that we will talk about in the book. I'm just plugging in my headphones because my pellet stove started and I think it might be making a lot of noise if I don't try to cut it out of the background. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started with the first section of Love That Dog, a novel by Sharon Creech. You might even be able to find this on Epic. I haven't checked, but I have a feeling it could be there if you wanted to read along. Jack, room 105, Miss Stretchberry. September 13th. I don't want to because boys don't write poetry. Girls do. September 21st. I tried. Can't do it. Brain's empty. That's this one right here. September 27th. I don't understand the poem about the red wheelbarrow and the white chickens and why so much depends upon them. If that is a poem about the red wheelbarrow and the white chickens, then any words can be a poem. You've just got to make short lines. And here is Jack doing exactly that, making short lines, at the end of that poem. Now, something that they do throughout this book is Miss Stretchberry shares with her class different poems, and then they respond to them, and they discuss them in their journal here. So this first poem that she has read to her class, in the back of the book, there is like an appendix that says some of the poems used by Miss Stretchberry. So this first poem these are all actually poems that were published by famous poets over the years. Some are new, some are very old. And so this one is called The Red Wheelbarrow by William Carlos Williams. So William Carlos Williams has written a lot of poems, and he's a really important part of this book, you'll see. So The Red Wheelbarrow by William Carlos Williams. So much depends upon a red wheelbarrow glazed with rainwater beside the white chickens. And that's all there is to it. So if you see, remember we've talked about poems. I'm trying to not get that glare on there. We've talked about poems a lot. You can see here that instead of sentences in poems, remember they have lines. And in this case, the lines are quite short. You can see that there are only 2, 4, 6, 8 lines total in this book. In this poem. And the separation of the lines in a poem are not called paragraphs like we have when we're writing literature, but here they are called stanzas. And so you can see that this poem has 1, 2, 3, 4 stanzas, the way they have separated those lines together. So each stanza has 2 lines. The first line of each stanza has 3 words, and the second line only has 1. So that leaves us with these 4 stanzas that have 2 lines each, but only 4 words per stanza. So this is a really short poem, pretty to the point, but also leaves us wondering a lot. So when I read a poem like this, so I'm going to read it again, and I really want you to think first, draw this picture in your mind. Let this poem be some imagery. So where you're really thinking about drawing this picture, what do you see in your head when you hear this? And then we'll ask some questions about it too. So, The Red Wheelbarrow by William Carlos Williams. So much depends upon a red wheelbarrow glazed with rainwater beside the white chickens. So think about the picture that you just drew in your head, and then some questions that you might have about that scene that you just drew in your head. I'd like it if you could even write down some of these questions in our Google Classroom. So that might be a post that I'll have. What questions did you have after you read The Red Wheelbarrow by William Carlos Williams? So going back to what Jack had said, I'm going to reread that page that he had just written about this poem so we can think more about that. September 27th. I don't understand the poem about the red wheelbarrow and the white chickens and why so much depends upon them. If that is a poem about the red wheelbarrow and the white chickens, then any words can be a poem. You've just got to make short lines. So sometimes poems are just about the way they make someone feel or the things that they make you think or wonder. They don't always tell exactly what needs to be told. They let the reader do a lot of personal interpretation. You're going to find that a lot in poems. So here's Jack's next response, October 4th. Do you promise not to read it out loud? Do you promise not to put it on the board? Okay, here it is, but I don't like it. So much depends upon a blue car splattered with mud speeding down the road. October 10th. What do you mean? Why does so much depend upon a blue car? You didn't say before that I had to tell why. The wheelbarrow guy didn't tell why. So that might be something for us to think about. It sounds to me, if I'm inferring, and if I'm actually seeing her question right there, she's asking, why does so much depend upon a blue car? So we might be asking to ourselves, why does so much depend upon that red wheelbarrow? And we might now start to imagine what happened. Why does so much depend upon that red wheelbarrow? So I want each of you to think about this part. You might want to watch this more than once if you have to really be able to hear those poems and think about them. I want you to respond in our Google Classroom to this section of the book, to these poems. And we're going to have a little conversation about this. We'll talk about this in one of our Zoom sessions later this week. And then we're even going to maybe start to write some of our own So Much Depends Upon poems to share. So, okay, I hope you like that first part. I'm not going to go any further just yet because soon they're going to move on to another poem by a famous author, by a famous poet, and they're going to respond to that too. So I'm going to kind of break up my videos in sessions and sections so that we can kind of focus on those different poems along the way. Okay, so for now, be thinking about what that poem meant to you, both the Red Wheelbarrow poem and Jack's Blue Car poem. Be asking some questions about it, be ready to respond on Google Classroom, and then start thinking, if you were going to write a poem saying that so much depends upon something, if you were going to do it in that same format where you're going to just write 4 short stanzas with only 3 words in the first line of each stanza and 1 word in the second line of each stanza, what might you try to focus on to really get your point across without giving too much away? It's kind of a hard balance to find sometimes when you're just starting, but I want you to think about that and we'll see what we can all come up with. Okay, I hope you like this so far. It's going to be fun. Talk to you guys soon. Bye.